Congressman Kevin Cramer. He's waiting in the green room with us. We're grabbing him in a second. I want to run out to Harvey, North Dakota, and the world-famous KHND Radio. My good buddy Rick Jensen, who's been helping us out along with WDAY TV News with the latest on the oil train derailment. Rick, how's it going out there this afternoon, buddy?
Hey, not so bad, and sounds like you're having some fun over there.
Well, I'm going to have some fun here in about a week and one day, hanging out at the Marksmanship Center. Oh, yeah, buddy. That's
there you go.
Rock and roll. That's how we roll here. All right, so what's happening right now? We're going to hook up with, I'm going to bring you on with Congressman Kevin Cramer as well. Let's bring him into the loop. Congressman Kevin Cramer, welcome to the Jay Thomas Show.
Good to be with you, Jay.
Hey, you bet. Also joining us, Congressman, I have Rick Jensen from KHND Radio in Harvey as well. They're about 8 miles from the site of that crash. And I know, Kevin, you are on location. Before we grab Kevin, Rick, crazy phones for you this morning and this afternoon?
Absolutely El Nutso. Phone's ringing off the hook this morning, and boy, a lot of information coming in. And it was quite amazing when this all came down. A good friend of mine, retired law enforcement officer, his name is Kurt, a good friend, I forget his last name, but he
Nice.
he actually lived just a little ways away from the derailment site. He was shaving, he said, felt the explosion, and the house shook, went outside and saw what was going on. That was pretty wild.
Congressman Kevin Cramer, you're on scene now, correct, sir?
I am. I am actually just pulling away from the scene now, having been briefed by BNSF officials and law enforcement officials here at the staging area.
And your thoughts when you rolled up on it, Congressman?
Well, my first thought when I rolled up on it was it's certainly not as dramatic as the early pictures were, of course, not nearly as dramatic as the Castleton situation, and for that we're grateful. Obviously grateful that there's been some moisture in the air this morning that probably helped prevent spreading of the fire and making it a prairie fire. So there are lots of reasons to be optimistic at this point. And then, of course, as is often the case, after we've been on the scene and we learn more details, we find out that some of the earlier details aren't quite as accurate as they oftentimes the case.
What are some of those details that were not accurate, Congressman?
Well, for example, I know the early statement out was that these were 1232 cars, which are the newer cars, and that they were unjacketed, and now that the fire has been, suppressed to some degree, or quite a degree actually, and they've gotten a closer look at them. They are actually the 111s, but they are jacketed. So they're the older cars, but they're the jacketed cars, which, with some early speculation is that might be part of why the fire itself is not overly dramatic. In fact, I heard Rick talk about the explosion. They're not even completely certain that there was, the type of explosion that you had in Castleton, for example. That there certainly was the impact, obviously, of the crunch of the cars, but there may not have been that type of large bomb-sounding explosion that there was in Castleton. So it certainly doesn't look as dramatic.
Rick Jensen, KHND Radio, Harvey, North Dakota, 8 miles away from the site of the derailment. Rick, I got to believe a lot of concerned citizens, fed up citizens?
Well, absolutely. This just embraces the idea that we really need the Keystone XL pipeline. And, how many more derailments do we need? And luckily, between this one and the one in Castleton, it happened away from an actual city. And, I just hope that, if this happens another time, it's not within city limits and really affecting people.
Yeah, we've dodged a couple big ones, and that's for sure. And we have a lot of train traffic. Congressman Kevin Cramer on the scene, or just leaving the scene now of the train derailment. And I believe it was 10 cars. Congressman, there's been a lot ever since Castleton. There's been a lot of talk of, what are we going to do to stop at least slow down, because I don't think you're ever going to be able to stop this completely, but at least slow down these derailments, because we are hauling some dangerous material. How frustrating is this for you, Congressman?
Well, I'll tell you what, this is, first thing is, Rick hit the nail on the head. The first thing it tells you is, we need more diverse, more balance in our transportation system. That obviously would help. We do have the the timing of this is interesting because, of course, last week the Department of Transportation put out its new rail car safety rules, and as it deals with hazmat and specifically with oil and other fuels. And in that rule, one of the things, for example, in the rule is that there's a phase-out period for the older cars to either be replaced or to be upgraded. And these 1132s have the jacket. They're the jacketed 111s. 111s are the jacketed 111s, and so you do have we do have something to sort of compare them to, because the Castleton derailment was 1232s. It'll be interesting to do that comparison to see how well the new rule, how much sense the new rule makes. I would say probably that part of it's making some sense right now. Whether or not you realize you can't avoid all accidents, then the question becomes, once you've prevented as many as you can, how do you mitigate the accident should it happen? This particular case study may demonstrate to be very crucial in providing some evidence that the 111 jacketed and the 1232 jacketed and more importantly the new 9/16" steel, maybe that's the formula that makes the cars safer, along with, of course,
pipelines.
Jacketing requires these ends, these thicker steel ends. It appears from the early looking here that it's 6 cars. It appears that 5 of them are on their side, 1 is standing up, and that they have in fact been able. They actually performed quite well in terms of the spread of the fire. There wasn't a chain reaction spreading. The locomotives were able to pull the front of the train out. The back of the train, they left 5 cars attached to the derailed cars, but those 5 cars stayed intact, so they were able to then later go back, pull the pin, and pull those last 5 cars out of there without incident. That's, to me, I find all that quite encouraging, in that the newer technology seems to, at least in this case, have worked in terms of avoiding the spread of the fire.
And listeners, when you're hearing jacketed and unjacketed, just so you are kind of schooled up, unjacketed means the cars can be retrofitted with a ceramic thermal wrapping, and that conforms to the new regulations. Congressman Kevin Cramer on the Jay Thomas Show, along with Rick Jensen, KHND Radio, Harvey, North Dakota. Gentlemen, can you hang on for a second?
Sure.
All right, let me take a break, come back. U.S. Congressman Kevin Cramer joining us this afternoon. He's on the scene of the train derailment, the oil train derailment, Heimdal, North Dakota. Also, Rick Jensen, KHND Radio, Harvey, North Dakota, ready to think of things. Question or comment from my guest, 293-9000, 888-970-9329. I'm going to let you handle getting those 2 back on and get them locked in, if you could, for me, Kyle. And then I will grab some calls here. John, you are up on the Jay Thomas Show.
Yeah, actually, I have a question/comment for the congressman, if he's listening.
He's listening.
I am.
Okay, so, you were talking about them splitting this train, and moving it in different directions.
Right.
Question for you: did they have a power unit on the back of the train this time, Congressman? Do you know?
Sure. So that's I don't know for sure, but this is an area near Harvey, which Rick can tell you, that has a yard. They have a lot of train activity, to say the least. So my suspicion may be, and I don't know for sure, but talking to people, is that there was another locomotive in the next train that was able to come and pull that thing back.
Well, see, and the reason I asked this is, and I've mentioned this before, and unfortunately I've never been able to catch you when you're on the air, with like Mike Capel in the morning. And I've made this suggestion numerous times that BNSF needs to provide power at both ends of the train, so in the event of a derailment, that the first responders can move the train crew to both ends of the train as needed to get these trains separated faster, especially with those unlined tank cars, so we don't have those chain reaction accidents.
Yeah, and they often do. I don't know for sure that they did in this particular case, but they oftentimes do that. And it's worth checking to see if that's a standard practice, if that's a 100% of the time practice or not. What they did in this case, it's my understanding, is they go back to they left about 5 cars between the last derailed car and the train itself, pull the pin, as they call it there, cut it away, and then pull them away. And then as the fire gets more and more suppressed, they can check out the situation, then they were able to go get those last 5 cars.
And I'll try and send you a follow-up email when I get a chance
Sure.
and get back home tonight, addressing this issue, because I've noticed, at least from, staying here in Fargo, that it's really inconsistent as to whether they have power units at both ends like they do on the coal trains.
Yeah, you're right. John, appreciate the phone call at 293-9000, 888-970-9329. Rick Jensen, world-famous KHND Radio, Harvey, North Dakota. Congressman Kevin Cramer on the Jay Thomas Show. Rick, a lot of the calls you're getting today, are people, are they talking, are they concerned more with how the oil's being transported? Of course, you want more pipelines. Are people talking about why are these trains derailing?
Well, exactly. Yeah, they're talking about why they're derailing, and it really incites the fear of an accident happening in town, like I mentioned earlier. Our radio station is sitting a block from the CP rail line in town here.
Yeah, we're only
kind of frightening.
Yeah, we're only a couple blocks from Burlington Northern's line.
Yeah.
Congressman Cramer, it just seems that there's an infrastructure problem more than there. I mean, we've got to make sure that these oil tankers are safe, but man, we got a lot of traffic on these railroads. And are we to the point where this and I know that the rail companies are putting millions into this, but man, we have dodged some serious bullets here, Congressman.
We have, but one of the things is that the track itself is under constant surveillance they have these monitoring vehicles that run up and down the tracks and can monitor every inch of it on a regular basis. The trains themselves, the wheels, the axles, the trains themselves are inspected every 1,000 to 1,500 miles. And so we don't know in this case whether it was broken track or whether it was a broken wheel. It could very well have been a broken wheel, which I think was the situation in the Castleton derailment, which, by the way, the tanker car didn't derail. It was another train that derailed.
Yeah.
The other train hit that. But so we don't know what caused it yet. But one thing I think we have to remember is that part of why we're seeing more derailments is we're seeing a lot more trains. So it's not that there's a higher percentage or that these particular trains derail more often than other trains. I will tell you, though, that obviously liquid behaves differently when it's moving at 40, 50, 60 miles per hour than does grain. And if you put heavier steel in a car, that means it's less liquid that can be in the car. That means there's more void. That means there's more room for the movement of the oil. Everything that you do has some sort of a reaction, and trying to find that perfect sweet spot is the challenge. The other challenge is how do you get it 100%? If it's 99% safe, 99% of the time, or 99.9% of the time, oil arrives at its destination safely. How much do you spend, if you will, in energy, resources, treasure to get to the last 0.1%, and does that make it unfeasible to even use the technology?
I don't think you're ever going to get it to 100%. Just like you're never going to get driving in a car, or flying to in a plane 100%.
Right. No, that's right.
That's just unthinkable. But with the amount of traffic that's on these on these rails, we really got to be keeping an eye on this, because again, boy, if something like this were to drop in any town, it's going to be devastating. All right, gentlemen, I've got about 30 seconds. Rick Jensen, KHND, anything before I let you roll, buddy?
Hey, I just appreciate the time, and a big shout out to Congressman Cramer. Thank you for coming out to Heimdal. We appreciate that.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. As you know, I honked when I went through Harvey, wishing I was on the mix.
Hey, Congressman Cramer, anything before I let you roll? You got about 20 seconds, sir.
Well, this stuff matters not just to the people of North Dakota, but around the country, and we need for people to be safe, and we need people to feel safe and be confident about the transportation system, so that we can continue to develop these rich resources we have in North Dakota and other places.
And I know we got a bunch of callers that wanted to get on with you too, but we ran out of time. I apologize. If you callers want to hang out and give your comments on the other side, you can. Gentlemen, thanks for the time this afternoon. Be safe.